So welcome to our session. Maybe some very short introduction. I'm Michele Arnese. I'm the founder and global CEO of M Sound Branding. I'm designed in Italy and assembled in Germany, where I live since 20 years, and where also M's headquarters for Europe is located.
And I'm Diana Omigi. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist and music psychologist and lecturer at Goldsmiths University of London. And this means that in addition to teaching, I'm also conducting research into how the brain processes music and how music is able to have the effect that it does on our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
So maybe very quick notes about AMP. So we are a global world-leading sonic branding company. We won all awards in all categories in our field. Very important, we are a full-service company, so we are specialized on the sound of a brand across all audio touch points. And also, we are thought leaders. We contribute since more than 12 years with our work to the development of the entire topic of sonic branding globally. One thing to mention, but later we'll go more in deep in that, is our best audio brands, which is the standard that evaluates sonic identities worldwide. And happy to have here like a cameo with Björn Thorleifsson, our head of strategy and research, also here today. He is leading the team around best audio brands. These are some of our global clients we work with. We are the agency of record for the sound of MasterCard, Mercedes-Benz. You see Deloitte, Kraft Heinz, and some other global brands.
So a bit about me now. Research into music psychology and cognitive neuroscience of music, so basically into how our brains process music and the influence that music has on us, is really booming. It has been booming for the last decades. So at Goldsmiths, an institution quite well known for interdisciplinary research, I not only conduct research on this topic, but I also direct a master's program entitled Masters in Music, Mind and Brain. And what happens is every year we take on about 25 to 30 students from backgrounds in psychology, musicology, sometimes with advertising experience from previous their work lives. And what we do is we give them the skills and the knowledge they need in order to contribute to our understanding of the cognitive and neural basis of musical behaviors. And so the other thing we do is through their master's projects, we really encourage them to ask a very simple question, which is, what is the influence that music has in everyday life? And we encourage them to share that research with the wider research community, and they do that by co-authoring papers with us and publishing it in peer-reviewed journals. So, for instance, one study I did with some of my students was looking at the extent to which the popularity of a song influences how much commuters or passers-by will actually donate to a busker. We did this in Waterloo Station, which was quite fun. Below, you see a more recently published study, this time published in the International Journal of Advertising, where my colleague Daniel Mullensiefen and his students, some former MMB students now doing postdocs and lectureships around the world, and some only recently graduated, they were able to show that pairing a brand with recognizable music actually led to sort of a 6% increase in choice and brand choice, and furthermore, that how much people liked that recognized music also had an impact. And last but not least, in the middle, you see an example of a study where describing a method that's now widely used in the industry to select music to pair with brand personalities and advertising campaigns. So we're quite active in the field for a while now.
So, but why sonic is important for brands? And how best audio brands measures the sonic brands in the world. Maybe a very quick insight on that. So sonic branding is about connection and connecting. So it's important to have a sonic identity that connects all touch points of a brand. What happens when we are able to connect these touch points? Basically, the brand is building memory structures around all the different communication channels of the brand. having the possibility to use the right sonic asset. So building on the talk before about adaptability, right? So being able to be understood as a brand in the right context, in the right touch point. And also, of course, we are transporting a huge amount of emotions connected with the brand at the single touch points.
Yeah, so I would say from sort of my perspective, it's clear that sort of music is important for brands because music works on us without us even realizing it's doing so. Much of my research is on something known as musical expectancy, and this is a subconscious mechanism that just emerges from the fact that our brains are constantly making predictions about the world, about what's going to happen in the future. And musical expectancy is basically, you could argue that music is a playground for predictions because when we listen, we just can't help but make predictions as to how, or anticipate how the music will unfold. And we now know from, well, it's long theorized, but now we know from lots of empirical studies that whether or not we get those predictions right or wrong, this nevertheless leads to the sorts of emotions and the sorts of meaning that we are able to extract from music. In my research, I tend to use so-called implicit methods. That means that we use methods that don't rely on people telling us, what music is doing to them or how they're feeling. Rather, we just sort of measure objective signatures from the brain and body. And with these kinds of methods, I've been able to show, for instance, that music is really recruiting deep structures in the emotional brain, explaining some of its power on us, but also have begun to understand what drives our desire to engage with music. And I won't go into information theory right now, but hopefully one of you will be tempted to read that first paper with a really long, boring title. And yeah, what else to say? Music obviously induces a range of emotions, obviously happy, sad, basically utilitarian emotions that we experience quite regularly, but more complex aesthetic emotions, which are increasingly studied by myself and colleagues. So emotions like wonder, transcendence, feelings of beauty, certainly nostalgia. And what's more, we've already heard, music can actually help us encode memories. These help us form associations, and of course, these can later be retrieved, allowing us to have a sort of sense of continuity with whatever that music was paired with. I guess the important thing is that we can't help as people listening or hearing music, we can't help but form associations or attribute some of those experiences that we get from music to the sort of brands that are associated with that music.
Yes, and everything behind Best Audio Brands is basically based on measurements that we do for the biggest brands in the world, and ties to what Diana said before about the connection and the engagement that the work of brands in music has with consumers. We are now at the 4th edition of Best Audio Brands. And now is recognized as industry standard. We publish it every year. It's a huge amount of work of a team with many people working 9 months on the brands. And now we extended this year to 250 brands from the 100 from the Interbrand most valuable brand ranking. We expanded it. And also it's data-driven. It's based on KPIs like customer recognition, customer engagement, belonging, ROI, we measure also, we estimate the spending in music and the return on engagement, etc. And the KPIs, they work sometimes with tools that we have in the system, like Social Blade measuring how people are engaging with the music on social for certain brands. And we monitor 1 year of content for each brand. So it's really a huge aggregation of data behind. And I think I would say, I would argue it's the most extensive data collection about the use of sound at brands that we have for brands right now.
What do I want to say here? I think it may not be obvious, but how music is used by brand and how that influences brands and how that influences people is actually a really interesting question for the cognitive and neurosciences. And that's because more and more we want to move away from using these very controlled stimuli and very controlled environments, moving into sort of real world environments and seeing how, in the case of someone like myself who studies music, how it's actually having a role in real everyday life. Obviously, branding agencies stand to benefit from the insights we already have about how music works, but certainly the methods that we use on a regular basis. And we're happy at Goldsmiths, the M&B team, to have this agreement with AMP where our students tackle sort of branding-related questions for their thesis projects, but also have the opportunity to do 6-month internships following their masters. And actually, this Best Audio Brand report that Michele is telling you about is actually something that one of our former M&B interns, now at full-time staff at AMP, helped to deliver.
So let's dive into some data. So it's quite interesting to see the comparison in the last 4 years. So we have the Sonic logo usage by 39% in the top brands. And now in the last report, 52. Normally a brand that starts using a Sonic logo could be a standalone element, so it finishes there, the journey, or could be the start of something more holistic. Depends on the audio strategy that has been developed for the brand. If you go on our homepage, you can download the report. It's really comprehensive, a lot of information. But maybe it's interesting, these are the top 15, and you can see here a lot of very different sectors. Apple, they don't even have a Sonic logo, but they have so many recognizable sounds across their customer experience that, of course, they rated very, very high in the ranking as well, because we evaluate everything you can hear from the different brands. And the number one, MasterCard, I will show you a short film about the entire strategy at MasterCard.
How could we turn a brand into sound? The sound of MasterCard is much more than a Sonic logo or a jingle. To connect with customers, we went all the way to the core of the brand and created a rich and robust Sonic DNA, the building blocks of our musical language, inspired by sentiments of inclusion and trust, culturally adaptable, but also flexible. For digital channels, whether your content is lighthearted, serious, or energizing, we've produced exclusive MasterCard music to cover the full spectrum of emotions. For storytelling, and for global campaigns. Did you notice that transaction sound? The MasterCard Sonic DNA is now heard at all points of sale, and it's not the only short Sonic asset in the ecosystem. We've developed multiple Sonic logos in different tonalities. And we're able to tailor them to specific content.
And start something priceless.
We can hear the sound of MasterCard in physical brand experiences. Sharing the Sonic DNA with artists has created moments of engagement in pop culture,
que las barreras fueron hechas para superarlas,
and in sports.
just want to highlight one thing from the data that have been measured, 78% more trust from consumers buying and paying with MasterCard compared with a scenario only with a visual animation without the sound. This is a fact that, of course, is tied to the theory behind, but has been measured by a brand globally. So last point, some takeaways and future trends.
One sentence. I see the future as, comprising of continued collaboration between scientists and branding agencies. I hope it's clear why. Currently, sort of priority is helping AMP learn about effectiveness, and some of our students are asking questions like, what is the effect of custom over stock music? To what extent, in terms of commercial annotation of music, is artificial intelligence comparable or better to expert tagging? And last points?
Yes, and also use an appropriate sonic strategy, a flexible one, like you have seen, a sonic DNA-based one. Last but not least, adapt the sound to the context. So you don't build a brick-and-mortar store in the metaverse like someone did already, so it does not make sense. It makes sense to transport the brand to the new dimensions, and we produce for the ears, not for the technologies. And that's why the exercise to put things in context for sound, that's key for a future-proof development of a sonic identity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.